Good morning. It's Sarah and it's time for Coffee and Crochet with Sarah. Now, just in case you don't know, every Tuesday we do our live video chat called Coffee and Crochet with Sarah, and we live stream it over to our Facebook page on Posh Pooch Designs at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. And if you want to watch the video live, that's where you need to go, Posh Pooch Designs. But if you don't have the opportunity to watch it on Facebook, when we're done here, I'm going to shoot it on over to YouTube and you can watch it there. That way, all my friends on Facebook and all my friends on YouTube can watch our video. Now we have a jam-packed video today. I've got new videos, new patterns. We have a crochet along coming up, and I also want to talk to you a little bit about how to keep those sides even. And I even had a question about needles that we're going to answer today. I see a lot of you already coming in there. There's Kimberly, Carolina, Jane, Dawn, Karen, Crystal, Stephanie, Gail, Lisa, Jerry, Tammy, lots of you. Let's see, there's Sinead and Lisa, Tina Louise, Sedan, I hope I said your name right, Kimberly. I got a tickle, hang on 2 seconds. We haven't clinked in yet. Hello there, Cindy. I see she just clinked in too. All right, let's clink in. Clinkety clink clink. I do have a little bit of a tickle this morning. I spent a lot of time outside yesterday. I got some new rose bushes that I planted. And of course, I've got a little container garden going that I've told y'all about before. And so I've been outside a lot. I've got flowers planted in my flower boxes. And so, anywho, I was outside a lot yesterday. And I think I got a little bit of allergy stuff going on. Okay, now I have to ask you this question. Have you been on Facebook? And did you make an avatar? And they're super duper fun, and Facebook rolled this out just for something fun for us to do, you know, when we're stuck at home to have some fun. And so everybody's making them. They're so cute. I just love them. And everybody says I don't look like mine. And so I thought I would try to dress similar. I got the black and white striped shirt and the yellow sweater. I got my glasses on, and I actually wore my hair down today. I rarely ever wear my hair down. I just can't stand my hair on my face. I almost always have it up on top of my head. So I thought I'd wear it down to see if I look like my avatar. Okay, you ready? No, that's not right. A lot of you really do look like yours, and my granddaughter did one. Callie, she looks exactly like her. She was really good at it. She told me I needed to add freckles on mine, then mine would look more like me. Okay, boy, I see a whole bunch of you clinking in today. There's Betty and Tiffany. Let's see. Oh, Rita says she was baking cookies and lost track of time. I haven't baked cookies in a couple weeks. Maybe I need to do that. Yeah, Carolina says she can't stand hair in her face either. I just can't stand it. I don't know what it is. All right, well, we have a bunch to do today, so let's just get right into it. I'm going to click over to my other screen here. And I have a couple things out here. And one of the questions that I get a lot, and I've been getting it a little bit more recently, and I know I've talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it up again, and that is, how do you keep your edges straight? All right, so I've just got a swatch here that I made. It's just basic double crochets. And I know that you don't want to hear this, but when you're stitching in a straight row, no matter what your stitches are, and actually, no matter what you're stitching, you do have to count. And the best way to keep on track, to keep your edges even, is to count your stitches. One of the problems that happens sometimes is the pattern will tell you to chain 3 and turn. Oops, my needle came out, or not my needle, my hook. And then they'll say 1 double crochet or 1 whatever in each stitch across. When you're stitching a chain 3, that pattern should tell you, if you're stitching a chain 1 or chain 2, chain 3, chain 4, what that chain 3 counts for. If your chain 3 counts as your first stitch, don't stitch in that first stitch. Start your stitches in the next stitch. Because if you do put a stitch in that first stitch, you'll end up with one too many stitches. And it's the same thing if you're stitching, say your pattern says, let's pull this out, chain 1 and turn. Well, most of the time, but not always, depending on what pattern that you're working, the chain 1 usually doesn't count as a stitch. And so you'll start in that first stitch. And usually the chain 1, when you're turning at a turn, is called a turning chain. And basically all it is just a chain, so that when you turn your work, your stitches are going to lay just a little bit neater. All right. Now, when your pattern says chain 3, there's 1, 2, and 3. Something that you can do to keep track and remember that that chain 3 counts as a stitch is to grab a stitch marker. And I do this sometimes if I'm doing a long row. And that will remind you to place your stitch when you get to the end. And let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so I've stitched my long row. And sometimes you stitch in that last stitch and you forget that that chain 3 counted as a stitch, and you'll turn. And that's how you'll get off by 1. So if you put a stitch marker in that last chain, just stick it in there, because that chain 3 counts as a stitch. Then you'll remember to stitch your last stitch on that row, and that will also help your count get straight, or stay straight, I should say. All right. And those are really the simple keys to keeping your rows straight. Count your stitches. Make sure you know if, when you turn, if your chain 3, 2, 4, whatever stitch you're working on, if it counts as a stitch. And your pattern should always tell you if it does or doesn't. Usually a chain 1 does not count as a stitch, but you never know because of what pattern you're working, what the designer was working out, and what she or he was trying to do. So make sure you check your pattern, and it will tell you if it counts as a stitch. And that's a really important way, by using that stitch marker, to help keep your rows nice and even. Another thing that I wanted to point out is, if you'll notice at the bottom here, my row seems to be coming in a little bit. And something that happens a lot of times when you begin your chain, you're stitching that chain just a little bit too tight. And especially if you're going to use that edge, I always try, no matter what I'm doing, unless I'm starting with a circle where I want to stitch around, I try to always make that beginning chain just a little bit loose. If you have trouble with that, and say your pattern is calling for an eye hook like this one, 5.5 millimeter, if you're stitching that too tightly and it's pulling in, especially if you're going to do something where you're going to match the ends up, you can go up a hook size. Go to the J, which is let's see, J would be a 6.0 millimeter, and just stitch that beginning chain, and then switch back to the crochet hook that your pattern calls for. And those are just a couple of hints that you can do. Now, I got a question this morning, and I'm just going to grab a piece of yarn here. I'm not going to cut it. I'm just going to grab a piece off of this one. And the question that I got this morning was, what kind of needles do you use for weaving in? And there are lots of different kinds. I've used some of the plastic ones, but I always return back to these. And this is just your boy yarn needles. And these yarn needles are always over by the crochet hooks and knitting needles in your yarn departments of your stores. Joann's, Walmart. I've even found these at the Tuesday Morning Store, Hobby Lobby, anywhere that carries yarn and carries crochet hooks and knitting needles, you'll find these. And I like this because it has a great big one for your thick yarns, but it also has the smaller ones as well. And the part of the question, she said, how do you get the yarn on your needle? And I'm going to show you real quick something that I do. If I'm using just a regular yarn that's going to fit that needle, I'll fold that over the needle. It makes it kind of flat, and then you can slide that needle on relatively easy, or the yarn in relatively easy. But something that happens with cotton yarn sometimes is it's difficult to get it flat. And so what I'll do is I'll open up the end of it, kind of fan it out a little bit. Then I'll put that needle on it and sort of flatten it out, and then you can put that yarn in the needle. And it was something I hadn't really thought much about because I always do it that way. And so that was a really good question. And I really want to emphasize, oops, hit my table, that there are no questions that are not important. All questions are important. And even though you think that, oh, that's a silly question, there aren't any silly questions. Okay? We have to remember something. Everybody's at a different place in learning to crochet. I call it the crochet journey. I don't think anyone ever arrives. We're all on a different place in learning. And whether you've been crocheting for 50 years or 5 years, you're at different places and you're learning different things and different stitches and different techniques. And someone who's only been crocheting for 5 years might even be farther along than someone who's been crocheting for 10 or 12 years or whatever. Okay? And so if you have a question, feel free to send that to me, and you can find the address, the email address to that in the notes underneath the YouTube video, or you can just contact me here on Facebook. There aren't, like I said, there are no dumb questions, and if I don't have an answer, I'll do the best that I can to find you one. All right? So that was what I wanted to show you today. It's very frustrating to be working on a project and you think you're doing it right, and you look at it and all of a sudden it's gone out or it's gone in, and you're like, what did I do? And a lot of times the thing that happens is not counting that the stitches right and not putting that last stitch in that chain 3 or chain 2 that the pattern calls for calling it a stitch. You know, and that's just talking about rows. Okay, just crocheting in rows, whether there's a pattern or whatever. I hate to say this because I hate doing it, but you're going to have to count your stitches. Count, 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 count. And the second rule is don't talk to me when I'm counting. I'll say to my husband sometimes, hang on, I'm counting. And then I end up having to recount anyway. All right. And yeah, Kimberly says that's happened to her. I think it's happened to all of us, especially we're working a project. We think we've got this one down. We know how to do this one. And we're working along. Like sometimes I've been on an airplane and I've just been going along and the person next to me is talking to me and I'm like, you know. And then the next thing I know, my baby blanket's looking like this, you know. I'm like, oh man, I got to rip that out. And you know what ribbit, ribbit, ribbit means is rip those stitches out. All right, now let's talk about what's new this week at Posh Pooch Designs. Now, yesterday we did our washcloth for our washcloth of the month, Crochet Along, that we're doing for 2020. And we did what I called the zigzag washcloth. It's a really simple washcloth. And one side we're stitching in those back loops. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And those back loops. On the back side, we're not. Now, this one is stitched with that scrub off yarn. Let me grab you what I did it in. Here's the scrub off yarn. This one is called Sail Away Blue. It's got lots of teals and blues in it. And it works great for this pattern. But you don't have to use the scrub off yarn. You can use any cotton that you want. And this is a cotton blend. This one is kind of curling up because I already used it. And you can see the ridges on the front, makes it nice and scrubby. And then on the back, nice and smooth. And you can use any cotton yarn. And what I've tried to do with all of my washcloth of the month, and if you don't know how to find that, I'm going to show you something that you can do. If you go to on the Facebook page and over to the side are where it says about, you're going to find my blog. Okay, I'm going to click over to the blog real quick. When you click over, hang on, I forgot to click over here. Let's see. I don't know why it did that. It didn't come up and my blog's not coming up, so I may have to reset that. But anyway, what it is you can go to my blog, and right here on Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube, underneath in the notes section are all the links, and my blog is there, and you can click on that. And on the side of the blog is a little box, and in that little box it says, if I think it says notify by email or something like that. Every time I put out a new pattern on the blog, or I put out one of these, you'll get notified by email. Now, I don't keep your emails. I don't even know your email addresses or anything like that. I can't put you in and I can't take you out. That's all up to you. And so you won't get any junk mail or anything like that. It's just so that when I put out, like every week on Tuesday, I put a blog out that goes along with this live video, and it has all the new stuff listed in there. And so you'll get notified about that, just an email, and you usually get it, like, I want to say 6 to 8 hours later, actually, because it gives me time to do the edits and then it sends out. Okay, and so anyway, I'm really sorry I couldn't bring that up. I don't know why it wasn't working. And that way you'll always be notified of the new patterns. You'll always be notified of what we talked about. And if you're looking for the patterns and you get like today's video or today's, I call it my newsletter on Tuesdays, because it lists everything that we talked about today. And then also it has all the brand new patterns and videos, and you can find them and click on that. The other thing is at the top on the tab is a little tab that says washcloth of the month, and you can click on that, and that will also have all the new washcloths as they're added. Okay, and it will have the blog link and the video link for you. That kind of messed me up because I was all ready to talk about that and had it all set up, and then I don't know, maybe Facebook didn't want me to do that, but that's okay. All right, now the other thing I want to remind you before we talk about some of the other patterns, before we forget, is next Monday starts our Crochet Along, and that is it's a short one. This is our bringing back the fanny pack Crochet Along. And if you're not a fanny pack person, you just make the handle so it's an over-the-shoulder bag. It's super cute, and it's got the sides so you can put more things in it as far as the depth. It's got 2 little buttons, and this one is made out of cotton, but I'm going to be doing the Crochet Along steps. I'm going to be doing those in acrylic, but what we're going to do is, I know Monday is Memorial Day, but what we're going to do is on Monday, I'm going to give you, excuse me, on Monday, I'm going to give you the list of all the supplies that you need. And it's really basic yarn. You need 2 buttons and those 2 D-rings. And I'll have the crochet hook and all of the weight of the yarn and all of that there for you on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we'll have step 1, then Wednesday, step 2, Thursday, step 3, Friday, we'll zip it up. So it'll be 1 week long. And it's the pattern is already out there because we did a previous Crochet Along with this probably 8 years ago, I want to say. And it was just on the blog. But I will warn you, we're going to be testing it as we go. So it will be changing as we go, and we're going to be adding lots more pictures. And so that's going to start next Monday, and it will be a lot of fun. And I think everyone will like it. And because it's kind of versatile, because like I said, it can be a fanny pack by adding those D-rings, or it can be an over-the-shoulder bag. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. I know I'm going to have fun doing it. All right, now let's talk about the other patterns that we did this week. Last week we did the bonnet. This is our flower granny bonnet. I don't know why that's so bright. Put on the purple side maybe. There we go. It's a flower. It's a 6-inch square. And then I show you how to make it into this adorable bonnet. And the bonnet has 4 sizes. It's got newborn to 3 months. It's got 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months on the written pattern. And then on the video, I show you how to do that and what you need to do to adjust the pattern. Isn't that cute? And this is Betsy. She's my little model doll. She has no face and no hair and nothing but just the shape of a body. But it's really quite adorable. All right. That is a brand new video and a brand new crochet pattern. The other thing we did is I had a request to update this particular pattern. And that is our puppet pattern. It can be a bunny, it can be a puppy, it can be a kitty, it can be a bear. And here's another puppy, and then we did a video with the kitty. It's super cute, super easy. Isn't he cute? And the neat thing about the puppy is you want to make it a chihuahua, you just make his ears stand up. If you want it just to be a puppy, his ears can go down. Isn't that cute? It's really quite simple. And these are all made in acrylic yarn. But if you want to make them a bath time puppet, just make it out of cotton. It'll work just fine. And you can use these in the bath. Acrylic can be washed and dried and stuff. And I just do these out of regular acrylic medium weight number 4 yarn. And the truth of the matter is, by changing the colors, you could make that into a fox. You could make it a panda bear. You could make it into just about any animal that you want just by changing the ears around and the colors. Super duper fun. All right, now I want to talk to you about a brand new yarn that I got in this week, and I'm really excited about it. I haven't got to try it yet, and I will. But this is called, I don't know why that is so bright that you can't see it. This is called Premier Bloom. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring this down over to this camera because we know that one's working. All right. This is the yarn right here. Move my coffee out of the way there. And it's called Premier Bloom. This color is called Orchid, or no, it's not Orchid, it's Hydrangea. The other one I have is Orchid. It's a chunky 5. And I got 2 or 3 of these. Let's see. Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a pattern. They sent this to me. I don't know if it's new to everybody. It's new to me. I've never seen it before. And what it is see how this right here is on the label? It makes a flower pattern. See how that looks? And of course you can see that that is knit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to come up with a pattern for this for crochet. And I've got an idea. I think a waistcoat pattern, a waistcoat stitch will work really nice for this, but I've never tried it, but we'll see. And I'll play around with it and test it. And since it's a chunky number 5, I might not put something out, you know, till closer to fall. You know, we'll see. So anyway, that's our brand new yarn this week. I'm sorry I couldn't get my computer to show you over to my blog. We'll look at that and see if we can figure that out. But don't panic. You can click over there from my Facebook page or my YouTube page and follow along with your email. And it's a really neat thing because, you know, I don't keep your email addresses or anything like that. That's all done through Google. And what happens is, once I write the pattern, I put it on the blog, and then of course we do the video and everything. And then once I make the blog public, and it's ready to go, then it will be sent to you in your email. You'll never miss a new pattern. You'll never miss a new video. You'll never miss what's going on, at Posh Pooch Design. Sometimes I like to do what I call a crochet pattern collection. And what I'll do with that is I'll just collect it. It's either all my patterns or some of my blogger friends that crochet, that have free patterns. We'll put them all together with a theme, and then we'll just all send them out. And it's really a fun thing to do because it's a good idea to learn and see how different pattern designers write patterns. Because we don't all write the same. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever picked up a pattern from about, the 50s and 60s, they wrote patterns completely different than what we do nowadays. And that's the way I learned to read patterns, was back, not in the 50s and 60s. I wasn't born till 63, but I learned to crochet by reading those old patterns. And, because, let's see, I was in late 70s, early 80s when I was learning to crochet. And that's the way I learned, was off those old patterns. Crazy abbreviations, and you had to do a lot of math yourself, figure a lot of the stuff out. And it was a lot of fun. But I really love that crochet has grown and changed, and that the patterns are a lot easier nowadays. But having said that, not every crochet pattern writer writes the same. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we all write different. I've been told I give too much information, but it's okay. I want you to have all the information that you need to be able to work the pattern. That's why I like to add extra pictures and notes and things like that, because there's nothing more frustrating than, working on a pattern and not understanding what they're wanting you to do. And sometimes it's really difficult to say, like, where to put your hook or what that stitch actually is. And something I found lately is a lot of new pattern designers have been taking old patterns and renaming them, and it can be a little bit confusing. So the other thing, my voice, of course, is scratchy, but anyway, the other thing to remember is that American written patterns are different than, say, English written patterns. And if you ever get a pattern that's written or I say English terms, is what I'm talking about, American terms and English terms, don't get frustrated, because you can go online. Google is your friend. You can go online and you can get charts, and it will show you, because different stitches are different in English written patterns. And it's just the terms I'm talking about. And different parts of the world do different things. Some of the patterns in Australia are written different, and they might just be the same pattern. So don't let that stuff frustrate you. If you can't figure it out, you can always Google the stitch, you can Google the chart, or you can contact the designer. Because, I might say something is a stretch, but you might say it's a flex. See? It's the same thing. It means the same thing, or does it? All righty. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I am, for some reason, got a tickle and a scratchy voice. Just ignore that. It doesn't matter. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'm going to do the best I can to have a wonderful week. And the last thing I want to say is the best way for you to have a wonderful week is to be kind to someone else and help them have a wonderful week. So I'll see you next week. Keep calm and crochet on. Bye-bye now.